In my previous life, little son Summer died in a wealthy family, while the gloomy me was returned by an ordinary family, and we both reached a dead end. In this new life, we swapped destinies. She took my place in that seemingly kind family, and I stepped into that devouring wealthy family in her stead. This time, we all need to live well. In our previous life, I was called Kathy, and Summer was called Summer. We were both children no one wanted in the orphanage. Later, we were adopted at the same time. Summer, true to her name, was as radiant as summer itself, a little sun. She was adopted by a seemingly cold and stern couple and entered that gilded cage. In the end, she leaped from the high rise, and the sun fell. As for me, I was gloomy, withdrawn, and didn't like to talk. I was chosen by a middle-aged couple who seemed kind and amiable. They said they would love me as if I were their own daughter, but in less than a year, I was returned. The reason given was that I was too gloomy, hard to warm up to, like a stone that couldn't be heated. After being returned, I suffered even more severe isolation and bullying at the welfare home, ultimately following in Summer's footsteps. In the final moment before my consciousness faded, I wondered, if Summer and I had switched places, would the outcome have been different? As it turned out, I really got a second chance. I returned to the day we were 12, the turning point of our fate. In the director's office of the welfare home, Summer nervously held my hand, her palm drenched in sweat. Her bright eyes were filled with anxiety as she whispered to me, "Kathy, I'm a little scared. That couple looks so serious. Do you think their family has a lot of rules?" As I looked at her, my heart felt as though it were being tightly squeezed by an invisible hand. In my previous life, she asked me the same question. What did I say back then? I said, "Don't be afraid, they look wealthy. Once you go, you'll be able to live a good life. Unlike me, the family I'm going to seems ordinary." As a result, my ordinary family sent me back to hell with a love called "For Your Own Good," and her good days were bought with depression and life. How ridiculous. In this life, I held her hand in return, feeling the warmth in her palm. The feeling of rebirth was so unreal. Only her warmth reminded me that everything was still in time. Summer, seeing that I hadn't spoken, thought I was uneasy too and comforted me instead. "Kathy, don't be afraid. Uncle Lincoln and Aunt Wendy seem really kind. I'm sure you'll be very happy." The Uncle Lincoln and Aunt Wendy she mentioned were the couple who had returned me in my previous life. Kind, I sneered inwardly. Their kindness comes with an agenda. It demands something in return. When they realized I wasn't the obedient and sensible daughter they had imagined, that kindness turned into the most hurtful blade. And the Green family, the cold and strict household that Summer was about to enter, had driven her to her death in her previous life. The Green family needed a tool, an heir for a political marriage, or perhaps a pretty doll to display at home as a symbol of their charity. Summer's sunny disposition, in that household, would only be seen as an untimely disturbance, ultimately to be mercilessly extinguished. But what about me? I was always just a stone, a stagnant pool of water. They wanted a quiet, unnoticeable doll. Then I was simply the perfect candidate. I don't need their love, I don't need their attention. All I need is a place to survive. As long as I can live, as long as I can watch Summer live well. A thought began to grow wildly in my mind, breaking through the surface. Summer seemed to notice my strangeness. She tilted her head and looked at me with some concern. "Kathy, what's wrong with you?" Footsteps echoed in the hallway. It was the director and the two couples. They were coming to pick someone up. Time was running out. I took a deep breath, looked into Summer's eyes, and said word by word, "Summer, let's swap." Summer froze, her eyes wide and round. "Swap? Swap what?" "Swap families." My voice was soft but unusually firm. "You go to the Lincoln family, and I'll go to the Green family." Summer was completely bewildered. She instinctively shook her head. "No, no, Kathy, that couple from the Green family. They look so scary. I don't feel comfortable letting you go. The uncle and aunt from the Lincoln family are so much nicer. You should go to a family like that." She's still like this, always thinking of others first. My heart felt both sour and soft, and I squeezed her hand even tighter. "Summer, listen to me." I had to convince her in the shortest time possible. "Do you think I'm like a little son?" She shook her head. "Then what kind of daughter do you think Uncle Lincoln and Aunt Wendy want?" I guided her. "They seem so warm, so fond of laughing. What they want is a child who can laugh with them and make the family atmosphere more lively. That person is you, not me." Summer's mouth opened slightly, as if she was thinking about my words. "And the Green family," I continued, "their home is so quiet, so serious. What they want might just be a child who is equally quiet and won't cause them any trouble." "Summer, you'll feel stifled there. As for me, I've never been much of a talker anyway. So it's the perfect fit for me. I can't tell her the truth about the previous life, it's too cruel, and she wouldn't believe it anyway. I can only persuade her with the most logical reasons. But, Summer still hesitated. What if they bully you at the Green's house? Why would they bully me? I calmly retorted. What is there to bully about a foster daughter who doesn't cry, doesn't make a fuss, doesn't fight or compete, and barely makes her presence felt? Summer, believe me, this is the best choice for both of us. Footsteps had already reached the door. Summer's face was full of struggle. I knew she was afraid, worried for me. I steeled my heart and used my trump card. Summer, have you forgotten that I was returned once before? This is something I made up, but for those of us who grew up in an orphanage, desperately longing for a family, being returned was the most terrifying curse. Summer's face indeed turned pale. That family said I was too quiet, like a mute. So they didn't want me anymore. I lowered my eyes. My voice carried a hint of just the right amount of fragility. The Lincoln family is very similar to that family. I'm afraid of being sent back again. I don't want to be sent back again. Summer's heart was completely in turmoil. She knew better than anyone what the words, being returned, meant to me. She looked at me, her eyes reddening. The doorknob turned. The director walked in with two couples. David and Susan from the Green family, the man stern, the woman aloof, dressed in bespoke suits and elegant gowns that seemed out of place in the small office. Bob and Wendy from the Lincoln family, all smiles, appeared warm and friendly. Are you kids ready? The director asked with a smile. 4 pairs of eyes, too cold, too gentle, landed on us at the same time. Summer suddenly looked up. She glanced at David and his wife, then at Bob and his wife, and finally her gaze settled on my face. She took a deep breath, as if she had made some kind of decision. Before I could speak, she rushed ahead of me, ran up to Bob and Wendy, and flashed an incredibly bright smile. Hello, Uncle and Auntie. My name is Summer. Wendy's eyes instantly lit up, and she excitedly grabbed Summer's hand. Oh, so you're Summer, you're so adorable, like a little son. Bob also showed a satisfied smile. As for me, I silently stood in front of David and Susan. I didn't smile or speak, only bowed slightly. David's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, as if wondering why the name on the adoption list didn't match. Susan's gaze lingered on my face for a second before shifting away, as if I were just an inanimate piece of decor. The dean was also taken aback. He glanced at the documents in his hand. Is there a mistake, Mr. and Mrs. Green? You were supposed to choose Summer. Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln, you chose Kathy. The atmosphere instantly became somewhat awkward. Wendy pulled Summer along, looking at me with some confusion, and David, the man who never tolerated dissent in the business world, was looking at me directly for the first time, with scrutiny and displeasure. I knew that success or failure hinged on this moment. I have to make them accept this mistake. There is no mistake. I spoke up, my voice not loud but clear enough in the quiet office. All eyes were on me. I met David's scrutinizing gaze calmly and said, Summer and I discussed it and agreed. Discussed and agreed. David's tone carried a hint of mockery, as if he were listening to a joke. Is adoption just child's play? Susan, standing beside him, remained silent, but her beautiful eyes also revealed a trace of impatience. I could sense Summer's nervousness. She was clutching Wendy's sleeve, and her palms were surely sweating again. I can't let her be afraid. Mr. Green, Mrs. Green, I turned to them, slightly bowing my head, adopting a very humble posture. I know this request is presumptuous, but Summer, she has a lively personality and enjoys a bustling atmosphere. Uncle Lincoln and Aunt Wendy's family environment is more suitable for her. Then, I turned to Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln and continued, as for me, I'm more reserved and not very talkative. I'm afraid that if I go, I might disappoint you, Uncle and Aunt. These words were flawlessly delivered, both praising the Lincoln family and explaining our motivation for the exchange. It also subtly played up my unlikable personality, adding a touch of self-deprecation. Wendy is soft-hearted. After hearing my words and seeing Summer, who was smiling like the sun beside her, her inner scale immediately tipped. Oh, this. She looked somewhat troubled as she glanced at the dean and the Greens. I think the children's own wishes are quite important too, don't you agree? Bob didn't say anything, but it was clear that he also preferred the lively and cheerful Summer. Now, the pressure is all on the Green family. David's face looked terrible. As someone with such a strong need for control, he hates it the most when his plans are disrupted, especially by 2 children. He stared at me coldly. As if trying to see right through me with his gaze. Reason, he uttered 2 words, sparing with his speech. I knew that the explanation I had just given to the Lincolns wouldn't fool him. I took a deep breath, raised my head, and looked directly into his eyes. Mr. Green, I've read about you in the news. You're a big-time businessman, your time is valuable, and you don't like dealing with trouble. I spoke at a measured pace, but it's very clear. Summer is like a little sun. She needs a lot of attention and love to keep shining. If she doesn't get it, she withers quickly. That is a kind of trouble. David's eyes flickered slightly. And me, I pointed at myself. I am a stone. I don't need attention. I don't need love. I just need a place to be. I won't cry. I won't make a fuss. And I will strictly follow all the rules in your home. I promise not to cause any trouble for you or your wife. My only goal is to grow up safely and successfully. The office fell into a dead silence. The director and the Lincoln couple were stunned, probably having never seen a 12-year-old child speak in such a manner. Summer's eyes were red-rimmed. She wanted to say something, but I stopped her with a look. Susan, the woman who had always been like a background figure, looked at me properly for the first time, her eyes carrying a hint of something indescribable and probing. David stared at me for a full half-minute. I could feel the low pressure emanating from him, almost suffocating, but I can't back down. This is my only chance. Finally, he spoke, his voice betraying no emotion. What's your name? Kathy. Good, he nodded, turning to the dean. I'll take her. Process the paperwork now. With that said, he didn't even glance at me again, as if the decision he had just made wasn't about a major life event, but rather like buying something trivial. The heavy stone that had been weighing on my heart finally settled. Success. Even without looking at Summer, I could sense her relief, followed by genuine happiness. She held Wendy's hand and skipped away. Before leaving, she turned back and gave me a determined lip sync. Kathy, you can do it. I gave a slight nod. Summer, in this life, you must be happy, and I am about to step into my battlefield. The Green family's car is a black Bentley with a license plate featuring several 8s. The driver respectfully opened the car door, and I followed Susan inside. David sat in the passenger seat. From the moment we got in the car, no one said a word. The car was eerily quiet, with only the faint sound of the air conditioning. Susan sat beside me, exuding a pleasant cool fragrance, but her demeanor was just like her perfume. It carried a sense of distance that kept strangers at bay. She kept looking out the window, as if I didn't exist at all. David, on the other hand, was on the phone. Speaking in business jargon I couldn't understand, his tone decisive and authoritative. I shrank into the corner, trying my best to make myself as inconspicuous as possible. This is everything Summer faced in her previous life: boundless silence, bone-chilling indifference. No wonder she became depressed. How could someone who yearned for warmth and sunshine survive being thrown into the Antarctic glaciers? But I can. I originally came from the cold winter. The car drove for a long time and finally entered a heavily guarded villa area. The gates slowly opened, revealing a massive, castle-like villa before my eyes. This was the Green family. After the car came to a stop, a middle-aged man wearing a suit vest, with his hair meticulously combed, approached. Sir, madam, welcome back, he said respectfully as he opened the car door. Uncle James, this is Kathy. She will be living here from now on, David introduced briefly before heading straight into the house. Susan also got out of the car and said the first words to me after entering the Green family. Follow me. I silently followed behind them, stepping into this resplendent cage. The house was astonishingly large, decorated in a cold-toned European style, with crystal chandeliers reflecting icy light. The polished marble floors mirrored our figures, exuding an aura of luxury, but lifelessness everywhere. A dozen servants stood in 2 rows, bowing in unison. Good evening, sir and madam. This scene is even more exaggerated than what's shown on TV. Uncle James, the butler, handed me a pair of slippers and then took out a folder. Miss Kathy, these are the rules of conduct that the master and madam have set for you. There are 36 rules in total. Please make sure to memorize all of them within 3 days. I took the folder and opened it for a look. It was filled with rules, line after line. You must get up at 6:30 a.m. sharp, breakfast is at 7 a.m. sharp, and the meal must not exceed 20 minutes, no talking or making noise during meals. You must be in bed by 9:30 p.m. Do not enter the master bedroom or study without permission. Do not touch any of the decorations in the house. I scanned through it quickly, my heart completely unmoved. These rules were shackles for Summer, but for me, They were just instructions, just follow them, simple. Got it, Uncle James asked. Got it. I closed the folder. James seemed a bit surprised by my calmness, but he didn't ask any further questions. He simply nodded and said, "Your room is at the end of the second floor, I'll take you there." I followed him up the spiral staircase. The carpet beneath my feet was thick and soft, making no sound as I stepped on it. The second floor is very long, and my room is at the very end. Far from the master bedroom, the room is spacious, 10 times larger than my dormitory in the welfare home, with its own private bathroom and walk-in closet. The decor is a pink princess style, clearly prepared specifically for the adopted daughter, but this shade of pink, placed in this cold and unwelcoming home, feels particularly ironic. "Miss Kathy, your luggage has been put away. Dinner will be served at 6:30. Please come downstairs on time." With that, Uncle James bowed and stepped out. The door closed, and the whole world fell silent. I walked over to the large floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the meticulously manicured garden, very beautiful, but like a lifeless specimen. "Welcome to the cage, Kathy," I told myself. "But it's okay, this time, I'm not the prisoner, I'm here, lying in wait." At 6:25, I appeared in the dining room on time. The long dining table was already set with exquisite tableware. David and Susan were already seated at the head of the table. My seat was arranged at the far end of the long table, far away from them. Dinner began promptly at 6:30. It was a Western meal, steak. The servants brought out the dishes one by one, moving silently. The only sound in the entire dining room was the faint clinking of knives and forks against the plates. I imitated their manner, cutting the steak into small bites and chewing slowly, not making a single sound. I ate quickly because the rules stated that mealtime should not exceed 20 minutes. By the time I finished, David and Susan were still eating at a leisurely pace. I put down my knife and fork, sitting quietly in place, waiting. Just then, an arrogant voice came from the staircase. "Oh, you actually brought one back." I looked up. A teenager wearing trendy brand t-shirts, with hair dyed gray, was lazily leaning against the staircase railing, looking at me with a contemptuous gaze. He is the son of the Green family, Kevin. In my previous life, he was also one of the catalysts for Summer's depression, a spoiled, rebellious devil. "He's here." Kevin slowly walked down the stairs and plopped down in the empty seat next to me, stretching his long legs out. The servant immediately stepped forward, intending to set the table for him. "No need, I'm not hungry." He waved his hand, but his eyes remained fixed on me, not bothering to hide his hostility. "Dad, Mom, you're quite efficient. You mentioned adoption yesterday, and today the person is already home. How much did you spend on it? What's the quality like? Does it wag its tail?" His words were harsh and unpleasant. I noticed Susan frowning from her seat at the head of the table, but she didn't say anything. David didn't even lift an eyelid, as if he hadn't heard a thing. This kind of indifference is an indulgence of Kevin's provocative behavior. In her previous life, Summer was brought to tears by that very statement from him. She had just arrived in a new environment and was already feeling nervous and uneasy. Being humiliated by Kevin like that made her burst into tears on the spot. As a result, David coldly remarked, "The Green family doesn't need crybabies." Susan just glanced at her lightly and said, "Kevin, stop fooling around." A light, weightless sentence, carrying no significance. That meal became the beginning of Summer's nightmare. Now, it's my turn. I didn't cry, I didn't even change my expression. I just looked at him quietly, as if watching a clown performing a boring act. My calmness seemed to make Kevin very unhappy. He was probably used to everyone reacting to him, whether with fear or flattery. My indifference was like punching cotton. "Hey, cat, got your tongue?" He raised his voice and leaned forward, trying to overwhelm me with his presence. "I'm asking you a question, can't you speak?" I finally reacted. I picked up the napkin, wiped my mouth, then looked at him and answered very seriously, "Hello, my name is Kathy. I wasn't bought, I was legally adopted. I don't have a tail, so I can't wag it." My voice was flat, without any emotional fluctuation, as if I were stating a fact. A young maid pouring water nearby couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. She immediately realized her indiscretion, turned pale with fright, and quickly lowered her head. "I'm sorry, sir, madam, young master. I didn't mean to." Kevin's face instantly darkened. He abruptly stood up, pointing at the maid. You're fired. Get out of here right now." The maid's tears immediately welled up, and she kept bowing and apologizing. "Young master, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. My family." "Get out." Kevin's voice grew louder. the atmosphere in the entire restaurant dropped to freezing point. At that moment, David finally put down his knife and fork. He wiped his mouth with his napkin. Then lifted his eyes and looked coldly at Kevin. "Sit down." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable authority. Kevin stiffened his neck, seemingly wanting to say something more, but after meeting David's gaze, he reluctantly sat back down, muttering under his breath, "TCH, boring." David looked at the maid who was on the verge of crying herself unconscious again. "Uncle James, handle it according to the rules." "Yes, sir." The butler, Uncle James, stepped forward, whispered something to the maid, and then led her away. I knew that handling it according to the rules meant deducting this month's wages and then firing her. The rules of the Green family were strict and merciless. A small disturbance just passed like that. David and Susan continued their meal as if nothing had happened, and Kevin beside me kept glaring at me with a murderous gaze. I could feel his anger. In his view, all of this was caused by me. If it weren't for my choking reply, the maid wouldn't have laughed, and he wouldn't have lost face. I ignored him. I just sat quietly, waiting for the person at the head of the table to finish eating. After a few minutes, David and Susan finished their meal and got up to leave, from beginning to end. They didn't look at me or Kevin again. As soon as they left, Kevin immediately exploded. "Did you do that on purpose?" he asked in a low, fierce voice. "On purpose for what?" I retorted, deliberately making me embarrassed. "I was just answering your question." I looked at him with innocent eyes. "You asked me if I could wag my tail." "You?" Kevin was left speechless by my retort, his handsome face turning bright red. He was probably encountering someone as impenetrable as me for the first time. "Scold me, I'll listen. Yell at me, I'll watch." Not giving him any reaction he wanted, he was so angry that he walked around the table twice, then finally pointed at me. "Fine, you're tough, Kathy, right? I'll remember you. Just you wait." After saying that, he kicked the chair with a bang and stormed upstairs. I was the only one left in the dining room. I watched his disappearing figure, feeling completely unmoved. He's getting impatient. He's really getting impatient. This is just the beginning. "Kevin, the pain you inflicted on Summer in the previous life, I will return it to you bit by bit, in my own way, of course, not with violence. To deal with a spoiled brat like this, the best way is to make all his tricks useless and make him feel like a fool." At night, after taking a shower, I sat at my desk and began memorizing the thick code of living. Actually, I had already memorized it, after being reborn. It seems my memory has improved a lot. At 9:25. I turned off the desk lamp and lay down on the bed on time. The bed is soft, and the quilt is comfortable, but I can't seem to fall asleep. I take out the old phone issued by the orphanage, hidden under my pillow. This is my only personal belonging. Power on. The signal is very weak. I sent a text message to Summer. "Have you arrived? Is everything okay?" I waited a long time before getting a reply. "We're here. Don't worry, Kathy. Uncle Lincoln and Aunt Wendy are so good to me. Their house isn't very big, but it's so cozy." Aunt Wendy kept holding my hand, asking what I liked to eat, and said she'd buy me lots of pretty dresses. I feel like I'm dreaming. Every word radiates happiness. I can imagine her beaming with joy right now. I smiled and replied, "That's good. Get some rest early." "Yeah, Kathy, you too. How are the Green family treating you? Are they bullying you?" "No, they're very quiet, and I'm very quiet too." "It's good." I told a lie. I don't want her to worry. Putting down my phone, I looked up at the ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling. The light wasn't on, but the moonlight streaming through the window reflected off it, creating faint glimmers. It's great that Summer is happy in her new home. As long as she is well, I don't mind whatever I have to endure here. In the following days, I strictly adhered to the rules of life. Wake up at 6:30, sleep at 9:30, eat without making noise, walk without making a sound. When I see David and Susan, I lower my head to greet them and then quickly disappear. I live like a ghost in this huge house, with a presence so faint it's almost zero. David and Susan seem quite satisfied with my behavior, or perhaps they simply don't care. A decoration that doesn't cause trouble is the best kind of decoration. The only one who wants to cause me trouble is Kevin. He seems to have it out for me. On the first day, while I was downstairs eating, he locked my door from the outside. I went back after finishing my meal and found the door wouldn't open. I didn't knock on the door, nor did I call for the servant. I just quietly returned to the living room downstairs, picked up a book from the shelf, and sat on the sofa reading quietly. Late into the night, Kevin probably wanted to see me anxiously pacing around, so he sneaked downstairs. he was completely stunned to see me calmly sitting there reading. "Why are you still here?" he blurted out. I looked up from my book and said calmly, "The door is locked, I can't get in." Couldn't you have called someone to unlock it?" he said, flustered and exasperated. Rule 31, after 10 p.m., loud noises or movement in public areas are prohibited to avoid disturbing others' rest. I recited it to him word for word. Kevin's expression looked as if he had swallowed a fly. He probably didn't expect that the tactic he used against me would be blocked by his own parents' rules. With a dark expression, he ran upstairs, opened my door, and then slammed his own shut with a loud bang. The next day, he changed his approach. He placed a sticky, fake toad in my backpack. In my previous life, he used the same method to scare Summer, making her scream, throw her backpack, and burst into tears on the spot. While organizing my backpack before school, I reached in and felt that soft, squishy thing. I took it out and took a look. The craftsmanship was quite realistic. I didn't scream. Nor did I throw it away. I found a transparent jar, placed it inside, and set it on the desk. When Kevin came to my room to show off and expected to see a terrified expression on my face, I pointed at the jar and asked him very seriously, "Where did you buy this model? I want to buy another spider and a scorpion to complete the 5 poison series. They would look quite nice on display." I will remember the expression on Kevin's face for the rest of my life: shock, confusion, disbelief, and finally, shameful anger. He probably felt his intelligence was being insulted. He tried to scare a coward, only to find out the other person was a pervert. After that, he quieted down for a couple of days. I guess he's brewing up some big move. I'm waiting. This game of cat and mouse is actually quite interesting. At least, it's more relaxing than dealing with those two cold adults, David and Susan. Kevin's big move came quickly, but in a way I hadn't expected. It was Saturday, and I didn't have to go to the new school, so I stayed in my room reading. Kevin seemed to have some event at school and left early in the morning. David went to the company as usual, leaving only me and Susan at home, along with a group of silent servants. At lunchtime, Susan surprisingly did not eat in the dining room but had the servants bring her lunch to her studio. I quickly finished my portion alone at the long dining table. After finishing the meal, I was about to go upstairs when I passed by the art studio at the end of the second-floor hallway. The door wasn't completely closed, leaving a small gap. I found myself stopping in my tracks. In my previous life, Summer said that Aunt Green's art studio was off-limits, and no one was allowed to enter. She herself had never been inside. She said that Aunt Green used to be a painter, but after marrying Mr. Green, she never painted again. The studio had always been locked, covered in dust, but now, the door was open. I hesitated for a moment but couldn't resist my curiosity, quietly peeking through the crack in the door. The studio was spacious, with excellent lighting. It was filled with easels and various paints, but a thin layer of dust covered many of the items, indicating they hadn't been used in a long time. Susan was sitting in front of a large easel. She wasn't painting, just sitting quietly, staring at the blank canvas before her with hollow eyes, like a sculpture devoid of a soul. The sunlight streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling window, casting a golden glow around her, yet, she radiated a profound, almost suffocating sense of sorrow and loneliness. In that moment, I suddenly felt that she and I were somewhat alike. We were both trapped in this gilded cage. I was completely absorbed in watching when she suddenly spoke, her voice soft but exploding like thunder in my ears. Enjoying the view, I was startled, my heart suddenly tightening, and I instinctively took a step back. I've been discovered. I stood at the door, not knowing where to put my hands and feet, quickly thinking about how to explain my spying behavior. Is it an apology, or pretending to just pass by? The door creaked open from the inside. Susan stood in front of me, still wearing that distant expression, but there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Come in," she said. I was a bit surprised, but I obediently walked in. This was my first time entering her studio. The air was filled with the mixed scent of turpentine and paint, a bit pungent, but somehow comforting. "Do you like painting?" she asked. I don't know how to answer. I don't know what kind of answer she likes. If I say I like it, will she think I'm trying to please her? If I say I don't like it, will she think I have no taste? After some thought, I chose the safest answer. "I can't draw." "I'm not asking if you can, I'm asking if you like it." Her voice seemed to carry a hint of impatience. I looked at a painting hanging on the wall, a deep blue starry sky, beautifully rendered, but it felt like something was missing. "I don't know," I answered honestly, "but when I look at the painting, my heart feels very calm." Susan followed my gaze to that starry sky painting. She remained silent for a long time, so long that I thought she wouldn't speak again. Then, she said softly, "I've been working on this painting for 10 years, and it's still not finished." I was a little surprised. 10 years, why? I couldn't help but ask. Because I can't find the brightest star anymore. Her voice was very soft, as if she were speaking to herself. I looked at her and suddenly understood. She didn't lose it. She let it slip away. After marrying into the Green family and becoming Mrs. Green, she lost the once shining version of herself. We fell into silence again. After a while, she suddenly pointed to a canvas stand covered with a white cloth in the corner and said, "That, I'm giving it to you." I followed her gaze and saw a small-sized canvas stand, with a brand new set of paints and brushes placed beside it. I was at a loss for words. "I don't know how to use it." "Then learn," she said calmly. "It's better than staying in your room reading like a little old lady every day." With that, she dismissed me. "Go on, I want to be alone." Holding the heavy easel and art supplies, I stepped out of the studio. The moment I closed the door, I glanced back. She had returned to the blank canvas, once again becoming that sorrowful sculpture. Back in my room, I set up the easel and laid out the paints and brushes one by one. I stared at the blank canvas before me, my mind equally empty. Why is Susan suddenly being nice to me, just because I said, "My heart will be at peace," or is it because I look too depressed, and she can't bear it? I can't figure it out. The world of adults is too complicated. I simply stopped thinking about it, picked up a paintbrush, dipped it in some black paint, and began smearing it randomly on the canvas. I really can't paint, but I love this feeling, smearing all the suppressed, gloomy emotions in my heart onto the canvas. As I painted, I gradually lost myself in the work. By the time I snapped out of it, the entire canvas had been covered in black, just like my life. At that moment, the door was pushed open with a loud bang. "Kevin is back." He walked in with a displeased expression, saw the easel in front of me, paused for a moment, and then flashed a mocking smile. "Oh, our great artist is creating. What are you painting?" "Some kind of scribble." He walked over, wanting to take a look at my masterpiece. I instinctively wanted to block it. That expanse of black was too oppressive, too real. I didn't want anyone to see the darkness in my heart, but he was faster than me, snatching the drawing board away in an instant. When he saw that pure, unadulterated black, the mockery on his face instantly froze. "You drew this?" He frowned, his face full of disdain, completely blacked out. "Are you out of your mind?" I didn't say anything, reaching out to take the drawing board back. But he wouldn't give it to me, instead turning the board over and over in his hands while muttering to himself, "Wait, this black, why does it feel a bit different?" He reached out his finger and touched the still wet paint. Then, his expression changed. "This isn't black," he exclaimed, as if he had discovered something new. My heart skipped a beat. He held the canvas up to the window, examining it carefully against the light. Under the sunlight, that seemingly pure black revealed an extremely deep, almost imperceptible purple and blue. To mix this deepest black, I blended several dark pigments together. "Did you add other colors to the black?" Kevin turned to look at me. For the first time, there was no mockery in his eyes, but rather a peculiar light. "Why did you do this? Wouldn't it have been better to just use black?" "Why? Because pure darkness devours everything. Only when a faint glimmer of light is hidden within the darkness, even if it's a similarly deep, cool-toned light, can there be hope. Just like my life. In my previous life, it was utter darkness. In this life, because of summer, my darkness holds a little bit of hidden color that no one knows about." Of course, I would never say these words to him. "I like it." I only said 2 words, then took the drawing board back from his hand. Kevin didn't grab it again. He just stood there, looking at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. "Hey," he suddenly spoke. "Kathy, you are really strange." After saying that, he turned and left without even uttering a harsh word. I watched his retreating figure, feeling somewhat baffled. Strange? What's strange about it? I looked down at the black painting and carefully set it aside to dry. Perhaps, in the eyes of normal people like them, someone like me, an ice block, is just inherently strange. Still, being called strange by Kevin is better than being called mute. Is this considered progress? I had no idea. I only know that the set of painting tools Susan gave me might become my only breath of fresh air in this cage. My life at the Green family is like a stagnant pond, occasionally disturbed by a stone like Kevin. It ripples for a moment but soon returns to calm. He seems to have lost that, must get rid of him at all costs, interest in me. although we still exchange a few sarcastic remarks when we meet, we no longer engage in those childish antics. His biggest attack on me has turned into him coming to my room every day to critique the paintings I'm working on. What are you painting today? A pile of crap. Can't you paint something more cheerful, like the sun, flowers, kittens, or puppies? Black again, can't you change the color? We have plenty of paint at home, not just black. I completely ignored him. I immersed myself in my own world, using the paintbrush to vent those indescribable emotions. On my canvas, there have been withered trees, birds with broken wings, deserted ruins, all in gloomy and oppressive tones. Kevin always came cursing and left cursing, but the next day, he would still come. I even got a little used to it. Susan would occasionally stand outside my room for a while, but she never came in. He never comments on my paintings, just quietly looks for a while and then leaves. A subtle understanding has formed between us. We are like two wounded animals licking each other's wounds, guarding each other's solitude in silence. As for David, I hardly see him a few times a month. He was too busy, and for an adopted daughter like me, he couldn't even spare a bit of extra energy. Such a life, for me, wasn't good, but it wasn't bad either. At least, I survived safely, until I received Summer's call. That weekend, I was painting while Kevin was playing games beside me, all the while criticizing my drawing skills. My old phone suddenly started vibrating. It was Summer's exclusive ringtone. I immediately put down my brush and said to Kevin, "Could you step out for a moment?" Kevin surprisingly didn't argue with me, just glanced at me, snorted, and got up to leave. I closed the door and answered the phone. Summer. But it wasn't Summer's lively voice that came from the other end of the line. Instead, it was a suppressed, quiet sobbing. My heart instantly tightened. "Summer, what's wrong? What happened, Kathy?" Her voice was thick with a nasal tone, sounding as pitiful as a child abandoned by the whole world. "Wah, Kathy." She was crying too hard to speak. I was burning with anxiety, but I had to force myself to stay calm. "Don't cry, Summer. Take your time, I'm listening." I comforted her gently. She cried for a long time before finally explaining the situation in broken sentences. "Aunt Wendy," she threw away my new yellow hoodie. She said the color was too flashy. She said girls should wear pink and white to look more refined. She even signed me up for ballet and piano lessons, but I don't like them at all. I wanted to learn street dance, but she said that's something only boys do, and it's not proper. I ranked 5th in the class on the exam. She praised me verbally, but then turned around and said to Uncle Lincoln, "This child is still too playful. If she put in a bit more effort, she could definitely get first place." Kathy, when I laugh a little louder, she says I'm not ladylike. When I go wild playing with my classmates outside, she says I don't act like a well-bred young lady. She bought me lots and lots of princess dresses, dressing me up like a doll, but I don't like it at all. I feel like I can't breathe anymore. She always says, "I'm doing this for your own good. I want you to become better." But the good she wants is not me at all. Today, she said my smile is too wild and lacks depth. I couldn't help but argue with her, saying I was born to smile and I can't change it. As a result, she started crying, saying I had broken her heart, that she had worked so hard for me, and I didn't know how to be grateful at all. Summer sobbed uncontrollably. "Kathy, am I really that bad? Have I truly let her down? But I'm really hurting. I feel like I'm not Summer anymore." Listening to her sobs, my hands and feet turned ice cold. As expected, sure enough, it's just as I thought. In my previous life, the Lincoln couple gave me up for adoption, saying I was too gloomy and not lively enough. In this life, they treat Summer well because she is cheerful and outgoing, fitting their initial expectations. But when Summer's liveliness goes beyond what they can control, when this little son didn't follow the path they had planned for her, they began to feel anxious and started trying to correct her. They don't love Summer. What they love is the more perfect version of Summer that they have reshaped. This is a form of control even more terrifying than the indifference of the Green family. Indifference, at the very least, comes with a clear price tag. I trade quiet and compliance for living space, a fair exchange. But the love in the Lincoln family is like a gentle net, wrapping around you and praising you. Then it tightens bit by bit until you can barely breathe, ultimately molding you into the shape they desire. They are not raising a daughter, they are crafting a piece to satisfy their vanity. In my previous life, I was returned for not being perfect enough. In this life, Summer is forced to be sculpted for being too vivid. Neither of us is at fault. The problem lies in their selfish and obsessive love. "Summer, listen to me. I said, my voice trembling with anger. But I tried to make it sound steady. You didn't do anything wrong, not at all. There's nothing wrong with loving to laugh, nothing wrong with liking yellow, and nothing wrong with wanting to learn street dance. You are who you are, and you are the best Summer in the world. But Aunt Wendy, she is wrong, I said with absolute certainty. Harm done in the name of love hurts more than anything else. She is not loving you, she is satisfying herself. You don't need to feel sad about her mistakes, and you certainly don't need to change yourself to please her. The other end of the phone fell silent. I could hear her struggling to hold back her sobs. Kathy, what should I do then? She asked blankly. I don't want to make her sad, but I don't want to go on like this anymore. What should I do, in my previous life? When faced with this situation, I chose to suppress myself and tried hard to conform. In the end, I failed. In this life, Summer must not repeat my mistakes. Summer, you can't confront her head on. I thought for a moment and said to her, someone like Wendy responds better to softness than toughness. If you argue with her, she'll just think you're rebellious and will double down on disciplining you. Then you need to learn to comply in appearance but oppose in reality. I lowered my voice. On the surface, you go along with her. She says ballet is good, so you go to class. But you can secretly tell the teacher that your ligaments aren't great and practice a bit slower. She says piano is good, so you play, but you can just play the songs she likes and get by with minimal effort. She says yellow doesn't look good, so you don't wear it in front of her, but you can keep a set of your favorite clothes at school and change into them when you go out. You have to make her feel that you are still under her control, that you are still that obedient, good daughter. Only then will she let her guard down. At the same time, I shifted my tone. You need to preserve your own space, sneak off to learn street dance, secretly make your own friends, and quietly live the life you want. Isn't this lying? Summer hesitated a little. Summer, to deal with extraordinary people, you must use extraordinary methods, I said seriously. This isn't deception. It's self-protection. Before you have the ability to leave them, you must first learn to disguise yourself and protect the fire within your heart. Never let it go out. Do you hear me? Summer was silent for a long time on the other end. Then, in a voice that was tearful yet unusually resolute, she said, I heard you, Kathy. I know what to do now. Good. Remember, no matter what happens, you still have me. After hanging up, I collapsed weakly onto the carpet. My heart was filled with both lingering fear and anger. I thought that by sending Summer to that seemingly warm and kind family, she would find happiness. I was wrong. There are no perfect families in this world, only different forms of cages. The Green family is a cold iron cage, while the Lincoln family is a warm cotton cage. But in essence, they are all cages. No, I can't let Summer face this alone. I have to do something. But what can I do? I am now just an insignificant adopted daughter in the Green family, barely able to protect myself. What do I have to help her with? A sense of powerlessness washed over me. Looking at the lifeless gray ruins on the drawing board, I felt such hatred for my own weakness for the first time. At that moment, the door was knocked. It was Kevin. Hey, are you done with your call? All that crying is so annoying. He shouted impatiently from behind the door. I ignored him. He must have grown tired of waiting and pushed the door open to come in. As soon as he entered, he saw me sitting on the ground, my face deathly pale. He froze for a moment, then frowned. What's wrong with you? Did someone boil you? I looked up at him. I looked at this man who was nominally my brother, the true master of the Green family. A thought flashed through my mind like a frenzy. Maybe he can help me. Why are you looking at me like that? Kevin took a step back, visibly uncomfortable under my gaze. I'm telling you, I didn't bully you. You were the one crying over there. He thought I was crying. I did want to cry, but not for myself, for Summer. But I couldn't cry. At the Green's house, tears are the most useless thing. I stood up from the ground, walked over to him, and asked very seriously, Kevin, I want to ask you for a favor. This is the first time I've spoken to him in such a serious tone. Kevin was clearly taken aback, and then, as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world, he burst into exaggerated laughter. You're asking me for help, Kathy? Are you feeling okay? I'm already doing you a favor by not causing you trouble, and you dare ask me for help? I know this request is abrupt. I ignored his sarcasm and continued, but this matter, only you can help me. My gaze was too serious, causing Kevin's laughter to gradually fade. He put away his careless demeanor, crossed his arms, and raised an eyebrow at me. Let's hear it. If it gives me a chance to laugh at you, I might consider it. My friend, the girl I swapped families with at the orphanage last time, Summer, she's not doing well now. I briefly told him about what Summer had experienced at the Lincoln family's house. Of course, I left out the grudges from our past life and only mentioned the Lincoln couple's controlling behavior and emotional manipulation toward Summer. As I spoke, I kept an eye on Kevin's expression. At first, he had a look of amusement, but as he listened, his brows furrowed. When I finished speaking, he sneered. I thought it was something serious. Isn't it just that your parents are a bit strict? What parents aren't like that? I've heard the phrase, for your own good, since I was a kid, and my ears are calloused from it. It's different. I shook my head. Your parents just don't care about you, but they want to turn her into someone else. Kevin curled his lip disdainfully. So what? What does that have to do with me? She's your friend, not mine. I need to know how she's doing at her new school. I stated my purpose directly. The Lincoln family will definitely restrict her contact with the outside world. I need a way to keep tabs on her safety at all times. Your school is quite close to hers, right? Kevin's school is the best private high school in the city, while Summer attends the affiliated middle school. The two schools are right next to each other, and many activities are held together. Kevin is a popular figure at school, with many connections and a wide network. If he is willing to help, finding information about a middle school girl would be as easy as pie. Kevin's eyes narrowed. He finally understood my intention. You want me to be your spy? He sneered. Kathy, what makes you think I would help you? What do you have to offer me? I have nothing to offer you. I admitted. I'm just asking you for a favor. Consider it compensation for all the times you've messed with me before. Compensation. Kevin was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, instantly flaring up. What's wrong with me teasing you? Didn't you already fight back? I haven't even settled the score with you yet, and now you want me to serve you hand and foot? Not a chance. His over-the-top reaction was actually within my expectations. Expecting him to show kindness was never realistic. I fell silent. The room fell into a stalemate for a moment. Kevin stared at me, and I stared back at him, neither of us saying a word. After a while, he probably felt it was pointless to waste time with a block of ice, like me, and he irritably ran his fingers through his hair. All right, stop looking at me like that. You're making me feel like some kind of irredeemable villain. He waved his hand impatiently. It's just asking for a bit of information. What's the big deal? My eyes lit up as I looked at him. He seemed a bit uncomfortable under my gaze, turning his face away and stubbornly insisting, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not helping you. I just think that family is really disgusting and want to see what kind of trouble they can stir up, purely out of curiosity. Got it. Purely out of curiosity. After saying this, as if to prove he really was just curious, he added, when I get tired of looking, I won't care anymore. I knew he had agreed. This hypocrite. He clearly felt compassion in his heart, but his words had to sound so harsh. Thank you, I said softly. This was the first time I had sincerely thanked him. What's there to thank? I already said I wasn't helping you. His ears turned slightly red. He yelled angrily and then fled my room as if escaping, watching him flee in panic. The corner of my mouth lifted uncontrollably for the first time at the Green's house. This bully doesn't seem so bad after all. With Kevin as my inside man, I could finally keep track of Summer's movements at all times. Although he wouldn't admit it verbally, his efficiency in getting things done was surprisingly high. The next day, he got Summer's class schedule and contact information through his underlings in the middle school. Hey, here's what you wanted. He slapped a piece of paper onto my desk, his tone still as aggressive as ever. That friend of yours, Summer, right? She's in class 3 of the second year, seems pretty popular, quite a few people like her. However, he changed his tone, frowning. I heard from my underling that she's been acting a bit strange lately. Strange? What's strange? I felt a sudden tension in my heart. It's just, she doesn't seem to laugh as much as before. Sometimes she looks like she's smiling, but it feels forced, and her mom, that Wendy, drives to pick her up from school every day, watching at the school gate. It feels like we're stalking someone. If she talks a little more with her classmates, her mom's expression turns sour. My heart sank. It seems my plan of outward compliance but inner defiance isn't going smoothly for Summer. She isn't me. She was never born to pretend. Forcing her to put on a fake smile for someone she dislikes is more painful than killing her, and what's more, Kevin continued, I heard that her mother has signed her up for all kinds of weekend tutoring and extracurricular classes. Her schedule is packed from 8 a.m. on Saturday to 9 p.m. on Sunday, with no free time at all. Ballet, piano, math Olympiad, English, TSK. Is this meant to make her a top scholar or drive her to an early grave? Kevin's tone was full of sarcasm, but it sent chills down my spine. Wendy is pushing Summer to the brink. She wants to use this cramming method to smooth out all of Summer's unruly edges. She's taking up all of Summer's personal time, leaving her no chance to go astray. It was terrifying. Kevin, I called his name. What? Could you help me with one more thing? Kevin's face instantly fell. Kathy, don't push your luck. I've already done you a huge favor by helping you gather information. Help me bring something to her. I took out a small USB drive from the drawer. Inside this are some street dance tutorial videos I found for her, and some psychological counseling audio clips. I'm afraid she won't be able to hold on all by herself. Kevin looked at the USB drive without saying a word, his brows furrowed into a knot. How are you going to give it to her? Her mom keeps such a close watch on her, he asked. That's where you come in, I said, looking at him. You're a big shot in high school. Finding an excuse to go to the junior high section should be easy for you, right? Like student council activities, club recruitment, or something like that. Kevin fell silent. He was probably weighing the pros and cons. Helping me with this would bring him no benefits, only risks. If Lincoln's family found out and reported it to David, he would definitely get an earful. I thought he would refuse, but after a long silence, he finally reached out and took the USB drive. What a hassle, he grumbled, stuffing it into his pocket, still wearing that impatient expression. Just this once. If something like this happens again, figure it out yourself. With that, he fled in a fluster once again. I looked at my palm, where the warmth of his fingertips seemed to linger. A hardened corner of my heart seemed to have cracked open a tiny fissure. On Monday, Kevin really went to the junior high school division. He went to the junior high school division under the guise of president of the street dance club to recruit new members. Of course, he wasn't actually the president. He had just made up an excuse. On the sports field, in front of many people, he handed the USB drive along with a recruitment flyer to Summer, who was in the middle of a physical education class. The entire process was very natural and didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. That evening, I received a text message from Summer. It was only 2 words, got it, followed by a sun emoji. My heart finally settled a little. I know, as long as the spark in her heart remains, as long as she hasn't given up, there is still hope for everything, and I must find a way, as quickly as possible, to become stronger, strong enough to truly rescue her from that warm cage. I turned my gaze to the biography of David on the desk. Perhaps I can start from here. Since Kevin started helping me, the relationship between us has undergone a subtle change. He no longer acts like a rooster ready to fight at any moment. Although his words still carry a sharp edge, the hostility has noticeably diminished. He even takes the initiative to share some school gossip with me, though, of course, the focus is always on Summer. Hey, Ice Face, your friend really stole the show at school today. As soon as he got home, he threw his backpack on the sofa and yelled at me. I was sitting on the carpet drawing when I looked up and asked, what happened? At the school arts festival, her class performed a choir piece, and she was originally the lead singer. Just before going on stage, she suddenly told the teacher that her throat was uncomfortable and gave the lead singing opportunity to another girl. She just stood in the group, blending in without really contributing. My heart skipped a beat. Summer began to resist in her own way. Wendy wanted her to be a shining, perfect daughter, in front of everyone, but she refused to comply. She would rather give up her beloved singing than become a tool for Wendy to show off. What happened next? I asked. Next, her mom's face turned green with anger. Kevin said with schadenfreude, the art festival was open to the public, and many parents attended. Her mom was in the parent seating area, ready to record with her phone, but then, ha ha ha. I saw her expression at that moment. It was as priceless as if she had swallowed a fly. I can picture that scene. Everything Wendy had meticulously planned was ruined by Summer in the most reasonable way possible. She couldn't even lash out because Summer's excuse was not feeling well. Such a considerate and sensible reason. Well done, I said sincerely. Right? Kevin raised his eyebrows proudly, as if he deserved half the credit. However, I suspect she's going to have a rough time when she gets home. You'd better give her a heads up. I nodded, but my heart felt heavy. Summer's resistance would inevitably lead to Wendy's tighter control and more intense suppression. This was a long-term battle, and Summer was fighting it alone. I had to speed up my plan. That night, I didn't draw. Instead, I entered David's study for the first time. The rules stated that entering the study was forbidden, but now, I must break this rule. The study was empty. David hadn't returned yet. I walked over to the massive redwood bookshelf, which was densely packed with all kinds of books. Ranging from economics to philosophy, from history to management, I found the business biography of David that I had read before. I pulled it out, and along with it, a thick photo album beside it. I opened the photo album. Inside were photos of Susan in her youth. In the photo, she was a completely different person from who she is now. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, carrying a drawing board, standing in a sunflower field, smiling brighter than the sun. There was light in her eyes. In another photo, she was wearing dirty overalls with paint stains on her face, holding a vividly colored painting. She made funny faces at the camera, lively and spirited. In another photo, she stood on a street in a European town, her long hair tousled by the wind, her eyes full of freedom and nonconformity. I flipped through the pages one by one. In every photo, Susan was vibrant, vivid, and full of life. She was once the light. What made her become like this? The last page of the photo album is a group photo, a young Susan, and an equally young man. That man is not David. He was wearing the same white t-shirt as Susan, with his arm around her shoulder, their heads close together, both smiling with happiness. In the bottom right corner of the photo, there was a line of small text, "May you always be my sunshine, Lucas." Lucas, I feel like I've heard that name somewhere before. I closed the photo album, my heart racing uncontrollably. I think I've stumbled upon an incredible secret. Just then, footsteps were heard at the door. It was Susan. She was holding a glass of milk and froze when she saw me in the study. "Kathy, what are you doing here?" Her gaze fell on the photo album in my hands, and her face instantly turned deathly pale. "Who told you to touch my things?" Her voice suddenly turned shrill. She rushed over, snatched the photo album away, and held it tightly in her arms as if protecting some priceless treasure. Her body trembled. Her eyes filled with fear and anger. "I'm sorry." I lowered my head. "I didn't mean to." "Get out." She pointed at the door, her voice trembling with emotion. "Get out." This was the first time she had ever been so angry with me. I didn't move. I looked at her and said softly, "His name is Lucas, isn't it?" Susan's body stiffened abruptly. She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes instantly filling with bloodshot streaks. "You? How did you know?" I guessed. I glanced at the photo album in her arms. "That starry sky painting you've been working on for 10 years in your studio, the missing brightest star is him, isn't it?" Susan's lips trembled, unable to utter a word. The wariness and anger in her eyes gradually turned into boundless sorrow. Tears, without warning, rolled down from her beautiful eyes. Holding that photo album, she slowly crouched down and buried her face in her knees. She let out a long suppressed, beast-like cry of grief. I didn't go to comfort her. I knew that what she needed wasn't comfort, but to vent. She cried out all the grievances, unwillingness, longing, and pain she had held onto for so many years. This gilded cage trapped her not only with the identity of Mrs. Green but also with that irretrievable past. I stood quietly by her side, waiting for her to finish crying. She cried for a long, long time before her sobs gradually subsided. She lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen, her makeup smeared, looking utterly disheveled. But in those eyes, as if washed clean, there was a glimmer of clarity. He was my university classmate, and also my first love. In a hoarse voice, she began to tell her story, haltingly. She and Lucas were the most famous fairy tale couple at the art academy. They both loved painting and dreamed of opening a studio together, traveling the world, and painting all the scenery. They thought the future would be as beautiful as a painting. Until Susan's family business faced a crisis and was on the verge of bankruptcy. To save the family, her father forced her to marry David, a rising star in the business world at the time. It was a complete and utter marriage of convenience. David needs the prestige and connections of the Smith family to consolidate his position in high society, and the Smith family needs David's money. I fought against it. Susan said with a bitter smile. I told Lucas, "Let's elope, go somewhere no one can find us." But he refused. He said he couldn't be that selfish. He couldn't stand by and watch my family end up homeless. He said he loved me, so he wanted me to have a good life. He personally pushed me toward David. On the day of the wedding, he gave me this photo album, and then he went abroad. I never saw him again after that. A few years ago, I heard that he passed away in an avalanche. Susan's voice was calm, as if she were telling someone else's story. But I could see her hands clutching the photo album tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force. "I hate him," she said. "I hate him for letting go back then. I also hate myself for not having the courage to persist." after marrying David, I never picked up a paintbrush again. I feel like my world turned black and white from the moment he left. I can no longer paint anything with color. I thought this was it for this lifetime. Until you came." She lifted her head and looked at me. "The paintings you made, though they're all dark and oppressive, but I can see that within the darkness, you've hidden something else. Your black is not lifeless, it is struggling, it is shouting. In your painting, I see the person I used to be." I never expected her to say these things to me. Even more unexpected was that she had been quietly watching me all along, even understanding me. "Kathy," she looked at me, a hint of plea in her eyes. "Could you do me a favor? The tables have turned. A few days ago, I was the one begging Kevin. Today, it's Susan's turn to beg me. Go ahead, help me finish that starry sky painting," she said. "I can't paint anymore, but I think you can. I don't know how to paint." I told her honestly. "No, you do," she said, staring at me intently. "Paint with your heart, just paint what you feel like painting. What to draw? Draw a star," she said, "the brightest star, one that can light up the entire night sky." I looked at her, and a bold idea suddenly surged in my heart. "All right," I agreed, "but I have one condition." Susan froze for a moment. "Speak." "I need your help," I said, word by word. "I need you to help me get 1% of Green Company's shares from David." Susan's eyes widened abruptly. She probably didn't expect me to make such an earth-shattering request. 1% of the shares. Susan's voice was filled with shock. "Kathy, do you know what you're saying? The Green Group is a top-tier commercial empire in the country, with a market value in the hundreds of billions. 1% of the shares means assets worth billions. This is not a figure that a 12-year-old child, or even an adult, would dare to mention lightly." "I know," my expression was calm. "I know it's difficult, but aside from this, I don't know what else can truly help me stand firm. I need money, I need power, not for myself, but for Summer. I must possess enough strength to pull her out of the quagmire of the Lincoln family. Only then can we ensure that our future lives are no longer at the mercy of others. And the shares of the Green family are the fastest and most direct path I can think of." Susan looked at me with a complicated expression. She was shocked by my ambition and by my frankness. "Why did you do this?" she asked. "For money, for freedom," I replied, "for the freedom to not be controlled by anyone, to choose my own life, for myself, and for my friends." "Freedom," Susan murmured, repeating the two words, her gaze somewhat dazed. Wasn't this exactly what she had lost? She remained silent for a long time, so long that I thought she was going to refuse. "I can't help you." She finally shook her head, a trace of weariness and helplessness on her face. "He won't agree. In his eyes, the company is his life. He won't give his shares to anyone, not even me and Kevin." I had already anticipated this. Someone like David, with such a strong desire for control, how could he easily share his empire with others? "I don't need you to ask him directly," I said. "I just need you to help create an opportunity for me, an opportunity that will allow him to see my value and willingly offer me this chance." Susan frowned. "What kind of opportunity? Isn't Mr. Green currently struggling with an overseas merger case?" This is the information I pieced together from the scattered documents and business magazines in David's study. "The Green Group wants to acquire a long-established European tech company, but the negotiations have reached a deadlock. The target company has a very conservative corporate culture and is highly resistant to the aggressive, barbarian approach of the Green Group." A look of surprise crossed Susan's face. "How did you know?" I guessed. I didn't elaborate further. "Is the founder of that company a collector who really loves art, especially oil paintings?" Susan's eyes widened more and more. She seemed to understand my intention. "You want to?" "I want to paint a picture," I said, "a painting that can move him, then. In your name, give it to him as a gift." "This is too risky," Susan immediately objected. "Kathy, this isn't child's play. This is a multi-billion-dollar business. If it goes wrong, it's Mr. Green who loses, not me. I have nothing to begin with." I looked at her calmly. "But what if it succeeds? How would he see me then? A foster daughter who helped him solve a major problem? Isn't she worth investing 1% of his shares in?" "I'm taking a gamble. Bet on David's business instincts. In his eyes, everything is a transaction, family bonds, marriage, all of it. If I can demonstrate enough value, he will definitely not be stingy." Susan was stunned by my words. She looked at me as if she were looking at a monster, a 12-year-old body, housing an unfathomable soul. "Let me think about it." She finally waved her hand and walked out of the study in a daze. I know she's tempted, because my plan is not only helping myself, but also helping her. If I succeed, she can regain some say in front of David. She will no longer be just a pretty, useless vase. She could also use this to bid farewell to Lucas, using her beloved art to conquer what David could not with money. It was a silent victory. In the following days, Susan did not contact me again, but I know she's taking action. I occasionally hear her arguing with David in the room, although I can't make out the details. Words like art and merger case still faintly drift into my ears. Kevin has also noticed the tense atmosphere at home. Hey, Ice Face, what's going on with my parents lately? They're arguing every day. Is it because of you? He asked, looking at me suspiciously. I don't know. I continued drawing. TCH, it must have something to do with you. He pouted but didn't press further. He just tossed me a beautifully wrapped chocolate box. Here, your friend asked me to give this to you. She said she made it herself. I opened the box, and inside were a few misshapen pieces of chocolate. There was also a small note. Kathy, thank you for the USB drive. The street dance videos are super cool. The audio for psychological guidance is also very helpful. I listen to it every night before bed. This is the first time I've made chocolate, so it's a bit ugly. Please don't mind it. I'll keep working hard. We'll all keep working hard. I picked up a piece of chocolate and put it in my mouth. Very sweet. It was sweet to the heart. Summer, you should be well too. Wait for me. A few more days passed, and the opportunity finally arrived. That evening, David surprisingly didn't work overtime and came home very early. He called me into his study. This was the first time he formally treated me as someone he could talk to. The study was filled with the scent of expensive cigars, making it a little hard to breathe. David sat in the large executive chair, his fingers interlaced on the desk, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's. As if he could see right through me. Susan told me everything, he said, getting straight to the point. You want to trade a painting for 1% of my company's shares. His tone carried a hint of barely noticeable mockery. It's not an exchange, I corrected him. It's proof that I have that value. Heh, what a way to prove your value, he sneered. Kathy, you're the most unique child I've ever met. Your ambition is higher than the sky. You flatter me. What makes you think a single painting of yours could move that stubborn old German man? He leaned forward, exuding an overwhelming sense of pressure. Do you know how many top negotiators I've sent, only for them to return empty-handed? Do you know how much money I've spent on this case and how many connections I've used? I know, I nodded. That's exactly why you need to try a different approach. When money and power can't solve the problem, perhaps art can. Art, he sneered. How much is art worth? Art itself isn't worth much, I said, but art can connect people's hearts. That gentleman, he refused you not because the money wasn't enough, but because he felt you didn't understand him, didn't understand his company, didn't understand the spirit of the enterprise he had poured his entire life into. He thinks you are just a barbarian trying to swallow him up, whereas I can paint a picture to show him that you understand. David fell silent. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers unconsciously tapping on the desk. He was thinking, as a top-tier businessman, he never makes a loss-making deal. Right now, he is assessing the risks and rewards of this transaction. The risk is, if I fail, he only loses a bit of paint and time, and perhaps a little face, but the reward is, if I succeed, he will win a multi-billion-dollar merger and acquisition deal, and all he needs to give in return is a negligible 1% of the company's shares. This deal is a win no matter how you look at it. All right, after a long while, he finally spoke. I'll give you a chance, but, he shifted his tone, his gaze growing even sharper. I'm not running a charity. If you fail, you'll have to pay the price for all that boasting. What price? I asked. Get out of the Green family, he said. Word by word, his voice icy and piercing. The Green family doesn't raise useless people. This was the old fox's test. Win, and you'll reach the sky in a single step. Lose, and you'll be sent back to square one. Very fair. All right, I agreed without hesitation, because I couldn't afford to lose. Coming out of the study, Susan was waiting for me at the door. She looked nervous. What did he say? He agreed, I said. But he told me to get out if I fail. Susan's face turned pale. Kathy, this is too risky. Maybe we should just forget about it. She was starting to regret it. There's no turning back once the arrow leaves the bow. I looked at her with a determined gaze. Madam, you don't want to be trapped here for the rest of your life, do you? Susan looked at me. Her lips moved slightly, but in the end, she said nothing. She turned and led me to her studio. In the studio, that huge canvas that had been blank for 10 years stood there quietly. What do you want to paint? She asked. I walked up to the canvas, reached out my hand, and gently touched the rough fabric. What do I want to draw? I want to draw a beam of light that can pierce through all darkness and bring hope. Madam, I turned to look at her. May I borrow the photo album of you and Mr. Lucas? Susan's body trembled slightly, but she did not refuse. She silently handed me the photo album she had treasured for many years. I took the album and took a deep breath. Susan and Lucas. The unfinished dreams of yours, the lost light of yours, I will help you find them back, then, with it, illuminate the future of Summer and me. I locked myself in the studio for 3 whole days. For these 3 days, I didn't see anyone, including Kevin, who came to inspect every day on time. He was stopped by Susan at the door, and he was so angry that he yelled, saying I must be up to something shady inside. I ignored him. All my attention was immersed in that old photo album and the canvas in front of me. I looked at those photos over and over again, at Susan and Lucas in their youth, watching their unrestrained smiles under the sunlight, seeing the pure love for art in their eyes, and observing the unspoken between them. They are a match made in heaven. If not for fate's cruel tricks, they should have had the most beautiful life. I tried to understand Lucas, understanding why he let go back then. It wasn't cowardice. Nor was it betrayal. It was a deeper kind of love, one filled with sacrifice and selflessness. He loved Susan too much to watch her suffer alongside him, too much to let her bear the burden of his family's sins. So, he chose to sever the ties of affection and push her toward a man who could offer her a stable life. He believed this was the best way to protect her. How cruel, and yet how noble. I began to write. I did not paint that deep blue starry sky. What I painted were sunflowers. Vast fields of sunflowers, facing the sun and growing wildly, just like the photo in the album of Susan standing in the flower field. However, the sunflowers in the painting were not golden yellow. They were ablaze, carrying a tragic yet magnificent sense of rebirth from the flames. I used the boldest reds and oranges, with rough and wild brushstrokes, as if pouring all my vitality onto the canvas. And at the far end of that burning sea of flowers, where the sky met the earth, I painted a star. A star, very small, but astonishingly bright. It wasn't hanging in the sky, but rather rising slowly from the horizon. It illuminated the entire sea of flowers, and also lit up the whole world. That was the morning star. It is the end of night, the beginning of day. It is Lucas, and it is Susan. It is their lost youth, and it is their undying dream. After finishing the last stroke, I took a few steps back and looked at the painting before me. I named it Rebirth. 3 days later, I opened the door to the studio. Susan and Kevin were both waiting at the door. When Kevin saw me step out, he was about to mock me, but upon seeing the painting behind me, he swallowed all his words. Susan was simply frozen in place. She looked at the painting, her eyes first showing shock, then understanding, and finally, tears of release. She didn't cry out loud, just silently shed tears, yet a long-lost, heartfelt smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Thank you, Kathy. She walked over and, for the first time, took the initiative to hug me. Thank you. I could feel her arms trembling slightly as she held me. I knew the knot in her heart had finally come undone. The painting was sent to Germany by David at the fastest possible speed, along with a letter written in Susan's own hand. I don't know what was written in the letter. All I know is that 3 days later, David came back from the company late at night and, for the first time, entered my room. I was awakened by the sound of the door opening and saw him standing by my bed, looking at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. You win, he said, his voice carrying a hint of barely noticeable exhaustion and a barely concealed excitement. Mr. Sam has agreed to the merger. He said that from the painting. He saw our company's sincerity and soul. The heavy weight in my heart finally lifted. What about my shares? Tomorrow, have Uncle James take you to handle the formalities. He looked at me as if I were a monster. Kathy, I'm curious, what exactly is going on in your head? I didn't answer him. I just pulled up the covers and lay back down. Mr. Green, the rules state that after 10 p.m., you cannot enter someone else's room without permission. David's expression instantly became very interesting. This was probably the first time he had been silenced by his own rules. He gave me a deep look, said nothing, and turned to leave. The next day, I became the smallest shareholder of the Green Group. Although it was only 1%, it was enough for me. The first thing I did was ask Uncle James to help me investigate the Lincoln family's background. Know the enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without defeat. Uncle James was very efficient and quickly placed a detailed document in front of me. Bob works as a small leader in a medium-sized state-owned enterprise. Wendy is a full-time housewife. They own one house and one car under their names, with little savings. It seems like just an ordinary middle-class family, but the last page of the document made my pupils contract sharply. Wendy has a biological daughter, in her 20s. She ran away from home out of rebellion and eloped with a rock singer. She never came back after that. The documents included a photo of that daughter. She was very beautiful, with some resemblance to Wendy in her eyes and brows, but her temperament was completely different. She had a head of bold short hair, with a defiant look in her eyes, full of disdain for the world. I understood in an instant. Why does Wendy have such a strong desire to control Summer? In Summer, she sees the shadow of her failed daughter. She is afraid that Summer will repeat her daughter's mistakes, so she would use every means possible to keep Summer firmly under her control, to mold her into a perfect lady who would never rebel. She wasn't raising a daughter, she was making up for her own regrets and healing her own psychological wounds, and Summer became the innocent victim in her quest for self-redemption. So selfish, so terrifying. I was just watching with a chill in my heart when Kevin called. His voice was filled with an unprecedented urgency and anger. "Kathy, something's happened. Your friend Summer, she's been locked up by her mother." My mind went buzz, and the documents in my hands scattered all over the floor. "What's going on?" "I heard from my little brother that the crazy woman from the Lincoln family found the USB drive you gave Summer. She thinks Summer has gone bad, had a huge fight with her, then locked her in her room, not letting her go out, not even to school. She also said she's going to contact the welfare agency, saying Summer has serious problems and she wants to return her." The word return pierced my heart like a needle. Was the nightmare of my past life about to repeat itself? No, I absolutely will not allow it. She also contacted a fully enclosed boarding school, one of those prison-like hellholes. She said she wants to send Summer over to be disciplined properly. All the blood in my body rushed to my head in an instant. Wendy, she's gone mad. She's pushing Summer to the brink of despair. "Kathy, are you listening?" Kevin's anxious voice came through the phone. "I'm here." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "Kevin, do me one last favor. Go ahead, help me rescue her. Now, immediately, right away." "How do we rescue her? We can't just barge in and snatch her, can we?" "No." I looked out the window, my gaze turning cold. "We're going to invite her out." I picked up my phone and dialed Uncle James. "Uncle James, help me arrange something. I want to do it as a shareholder of the Green Group. I'll formally visit Mr. Bob and discuss with him about the future investment plan for his daughter, Summer." Uncle James was taken aback for a moment on the other end of the phone, but quickly replied respectfully, "Yes, Miss Wendy, don't you think your daughter is your masterpiece? Then let me show you how much this masterpiece is worth now. Don't you want to control her life? Then I will rightfully buy her life back from your hands. This time, I won't let anyone hurt my little son again." Half an hour later, 3 black Mercedes-Benz cars stopped downstairs in the residential area where Lincoln's family lived. I got out of the middle car, a black suit, which I had Uncle James specially prepare for me. Kevin followed by my side, also changed into a formal suit, his expression more serious than ever before. Uncle James brought 4 bodyguards dressed in black suits and wearing sunglasses, following behind us. This display caught the attention of the neighbors in the community. We went straight upstairs and knocked on the Lincoln family's door. Bob was the one who opened the door. He was completely stunned by the scene at the door. Who are you?" Uncle James stepped forward, handed over his business card, and said in a steady voice, "Mr. Lincoln, we are from the Green Group. This is our company's new shareholder, Miss Kathy. Miss Kathy would like to discuss the future of your daughter, Miss Summer, with you and your wife. Green Group, shareholder." Bob's hand trembled as he held the business card. Clearly overwhelmed by the weight of the prestigious name, he stammered as he invited us in. Wendy was sitting in the living room, looking haggard. She seemed startled when she saw us come in. "You're looking for Summer. She's sick and resting in her room." She avoided eye contact, clearly lying. I ignored her, walked straight to the sofa, and sat down, scanning this cozy home. On the wall hung photos of Summer, each one showing her in a beautiful princess dress, smiling like a doll. "Mr. Lincoln, Mrs. Lincoln, I'll get straight to the point." I placed a document on the coffee table and pushed it toward them. Our Green Group recently launched a Genius Youth Development Program aimed at discovering and nurturing talented children in various fields. we provide them with the best educational resources and development platforms. After our evaluation, we believe that Miss Summer has exceptional talent in the arts, especially in dance. We hope to include her in this program." Bob and Wendy looked at each other, clearly not understanding what I meant. "What exactly is this program?" Bob asked cautiously. "Specifically," I said, looking at them, word by word. "We will be responsible for all of Miss Summer's tuition and living expenses from now until she graduates from university. We will send her to the best art schools abroad for further studies and hire top-tier mentors for her. In return, after she completes her education, she will need to work for the Green Group's entertainment company for 10 years. I paused for a moment before dropping the bombshell. "Of course, to show our sincerity, after signing the contract, we will provide an upfront development fund to both of you as a token of appreciation for your efforts in raising Summer all these years." I placed a check on top of the documents. 5 million, 5 million, Bob and Wendy exclaimed in unison, their eyes fixed on the check, their breathing becoming rapid. 5 million was an astronomical figure that their ordinary family could never earn in a lifetime. Is this real?" Wendy's voice trembled. "Of course," I nodded, "as long as you agree to let Summer join our plan and fully entrust her custody to us." "Custody?" Wendy's face instantly changed. "No, Summer is my daughter. I can't give her to you." She finally showed her true colors. "Mrs. Lincoln," I looked at her coldly, "are you sure you see her as a daughter, and not as a private possession to satisfy your need for control?" What nonsense are you talking?" She screamed as if she had been stepped on a sore spot. "Me, talking nonsense?" I sneered and threw another document Uncle James had found in front of her. "Your own biological daughter ran away from home because of your controlling nature and has been missing ever since. Are you now trying to repeat the same tragedy with Summer? How could you know?" Wendy's face instantly drained of color, as if she had seen a ghost. "You locked Summer up, forced her to drop out of school, and even wanted to send her to one of those so-called correctional schools. Isn't that the truth?" My voice grew colder. "What you call, for her own good, is nothing but using love as an excuse to cause harm. You don't deserve to be a mother at all." I did it all for her own good. She wouldn't listen. She's gone astray," Wendy shouted emotionally. "She just wants to learn the dance she loves, wear the clothes she likes, and laugh more genuinely. Is that considered going astray?" I stood up, looking down at her from above. "Wendy, you don't love her at all. What you love is just the puppet you control." At that moment, with a loud bang, a bedroom door was slammed open from the inside. Summer rushed out. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled, and her eyes were red and swollen, but within those eyes, a flame of anger burned fiercely. "You're right." She pointed at Wendy, her voice trembling with emotion. "You never asked me what I wanted. All you know is how to push me." "Push me? I'm not your tool." Summer, seeing Summer come out, I immediately went up to her. Kathy, when she saw me, she could no longer hold back her tears, which burst forth like a broken dam, and she threw her arms around me. "Don't be afraid, I'm here," I said, holding her tightly and patting her back. "I've come to take you home." Outrageous. This is absolutely outrageous. Wendy, watching us embrace, trembled with anger from head to toe. "Summer, I've raised you for so long, and this is how you repay me, you ungrateful wretch." "Enough." Bob, who had been silent all along, suddenly roared. He looked at his wife, who seemed to be in a state of madness, then glanced at the $5 million check, his face showing an expression of extreme struggle. In the end, greed triumphed over reason. He picked up the pen and signed his name on the document. "Let her go," he said to Wendy, his voice filled with exhaustion. Wendy looked at him in disbelief. "Bob, $5 million. With that money, we can have everything," Bob said with reddened eyes. "As for our daughter, we can have another one who's obedient." Wendy was completely stunned. She looked at her husband as if she were meeting him for the first time. I took Summer's hand and walked away without giving that despicable couple another glance. Kevin followed us, and before leaving, he glanced back at the disheartened Wendy and sneered, "Serves you right." As we stepped out of that suffocating building, the sunlight outside was just right. Summer looked up at the sky, took a deep breath, as if trying to inhale all the fresh air into her lungs. "Kathy," she turned her head, looked at me, tear stains still on her face, but she showed an incredibly bright smile. "I'm free." "Yeah," I nodded with a smile. "You're free." Back at the Greens' house, both Susan and David were there. Seeing me bring Summer back, they weren't too surprised. Susan walked over and gently patted Summer's head. "Good child. From now on, just treat this place as your own home." Summer was a bit overwhelmed by the favor and softly said, "Thank you, Auntie." David glanced at me, his eyes holding something I couldn't quite understand. "Good job." He only said 4 words, then went upstairs. In the evening, I arranged for Summer to stay in the room next to mine. I had already asked Uncle James to redecorate that room according to Summer's preferences. The walls were painted a bright lemon yellow, with large floor-to-ceiling windows, and the windowsills were filled with sunflowers. "Wow," Summer exclaimed as soon as she entered. "Kathy, this place is so beautiful, it's like a little sun palace." She threw herself onto the soft bed and happily rolled around. Seeing her regain her energy made me genuinely happy. "Summer," I walked over and sat down by her bed. "From now on, whatever you want to learn, just go ahead and learn it. Wear whatever you want, laugh however you like. No one can control you anymore." "Yeah," she nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling. "Kathy, you too. From now on, we'll always be together, never apart again." "All right, never apart again." We lay on the same bed, just like when we were kids in the orphanage, whispering to each other. "Kathy, you're so amazing," Summer said, turning to look at me. "You're like a heroine, saving me from the bad guys." I smiled. "I'm not a heroine. I just don't want to see you get hurt again." "That Kevin guy doesn't seem so bad after all," she added. "He looked pretty handsome today." I pictured Kevin in a suit with a serious expression and couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, that bully really seems to have changed." The moonlight outside the window gently streamed in. "In this life, Summer and I have finally stepped out of our respective cages. I know there is still a long road ahead. Green's home is still not a harbor full of love. It's more like a well-resourced supply station where we temporarily dock, but it doesn't matter. As long as we are together, anywhere can be home." I look at Summer, who is already asleep beside me, a sweet smile still on her face. I gently leaned in and planted a kiss on her forehead. "Good night, my little son. In this life, we must both be well and walk together toward that truly bright future." After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.